All right, as we were just talking about, a lot of confusion involved in the realm of transgenderism. What makes a man? What makes a woman? Should we be listening to children who are demanding to take puberty blockers? Should we deny their parents the right to speak into the issue? What's interesting here is, in fact, my next guest has been on the program before, but he spoke recently, well, it's been last fall, about his experience as a transgendered male. He was a male, became a female, and then came back. But he talked about his regrets. And YouTube declared his personal story hate speech and took it down. Joining me now to talk about it is Walt Heyer. He is speaker, author, and the publisher of sexchangeregret.com, which is his blog, waltheyer.com. He shares his own story of regret, seeking approval through his gender identity. Walt, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Yeah, thanks. It's nice to be on.
Well, Walt, let me just ask you this. Why is YouTube taking your story, your thoughts about your life and what you've been through, and labeling it hate speech?
Because millions of people were starting to watch it, and they didn't want them to hear the truth. If it wasn't a popular video, they probably wouldn't have done much of anything, but it started getting a lot of views. And so once it crossed the million mark, I think they started to get alarmed. So I was a kid that went through this. So I was speaking from my heart. I wasn't being critical as much as I was being given advice on the fact that what we know is if children are left alone and do not give them hormone blockers and give them a new identity and change their clothing, that between 80 to 95% of them will actually grow out of it. So my thought was, and what I was speaking to, was the fact that when you introduce puberty blockers to a kid and begin to lock him into an identity that he otherwise might just grow out of if we left him alone.
And I agree with all that. That's all true. It's all proven. The facts, the statistics are proven out. But here's my concern here, Walt Heyer, is that this is your story. It's your story.
Right.
Why does everybody get their story except for those whose story doesn't fit the narrative that they want to tell?
Well, they've got a few people at YouTube who decide what's hate speech and who can speak and who can't speak, and I'm not one of the approved people at YouTube. The problem is the truth is offensive to some people, and I speak the truth, and so they pulled it down. And not only that, probably even more egregious than just taking down my video, that was an entire day of doctors and endocrinologists and specialists that were included in this conference. They took all of them down because of my video, not just mine. They took them all off of YouTube.
But I would also say, because I know your story, Walt, your story, in being able to tell your story and the pain associated with that story is answering the questions that many people have. And as a result, that truth that you pointed to is making them free. They're being freed from the direction that they're being driven to by the popular culture. It's a story that needs to be told.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. But they don't want people to be freed from this. This is, there's a lot of political power behind the transgender movement. There's a lot of money behind the movement, and I interfere with that. I go against the grain on this. I'm not somebody that waves the rainbow flag for changing kids' genders, or even for that matter, adults. I have had as many as 350,000 people come to my website, sexchangeregret.com. Part of them are just curious, but a lot of them are in pain.
Right.
And I've worked literally now with thousands of individuals who've gone through this, and they regret it. And they don't want people to know that people who go through this process do not stay transgender. You're a transgender until such time as you change your mind and detransition. I work with the people who regret it, which usually comes between 3 and 15 years after making the change. But people do not stay transgender.
And Walt Heyer, you're not alone. There's more Walt Heyers out there who have gone through this process and want to tell their stories.